Ready?
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay, ready. 3, 2, and 1. Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Red Thoughts with Perry Picasso. I am your host, Perry Picasso, and today I am joined by a very lovely guest.
Hi.
Say your name.
Which name should I be using?
Whatever your heart desires.
Evan Turk and also Jay Carino.
Woo! Welcome. I guess for this interview, how would you like to be addressed as? Who are you feeling today?
You can just call me Evan for today. So,
Okay,
yeah,
Evan.
but we can talk about whatever.
Okay. Well, we'll dive deeper into that if you don't mind me asking. So before we dive deeper into the alter egos or sort of the name of the artist, I want to know how it all began. Like, tell me about young little baby you.
Well, I grew up in Colorado, and I was always an artsy kid, was always drawing. And I went to school in New York, not for art initially, and then I got a job doing graphic design for the student paper at NYU and really loved that. And I had never really considered art as a career before. I mean, I kind of like thought about it, but like wasn't really pursuing it.
Was it like a faraway dream?
It wasn't necessarily even a faraway dream. I was just kind of like
Not even an option?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was an artist, is an artist, so like I don't,
Okay.
I had seen it before, but I think it just wasn't really on my radar. Like I didn't know in what capacity I could work as an artist, so I was not thinking that way. But then once I got that job, I started liking that better than my regular classes, and then ended up transferring to Parsons for graphic design initially, and then illustration.
Okay. So you said your mama is also an artist.
Yes.
What type of work does she do?
So she was a commercial interior designer for a long time before I was born. And then when I was growing up, she worked as a muralist for about 10 years. And then she worked as an elementary school art teacher for 20 years after that.
Wow.
So she's kind of done all different things. But
Okay. So then growing up, would you say she was encouraging of you doing art?
Oh, definitely. She was my first art teacher. So yeah.
Oh, how was that?
That was great. Yeah, she used to teach me and some of the other kids. I think it was in the summers mostly, but she would kind of teach us in our basement. We would do little art projects. And she would sometimes come into my classes at school and do projects with the class there too. So, yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. Were you excited to see her, or were you the type to be like, Mom, don't look at me?
I think I was very excited. I don't remember specifically, but yeah, we always had a lot of fun. So
good.
I probably would have been more embarrassed if it had been like high school or something. But
Okay, but elementary,
Yes.
you were like excited.
Yeah.
My mom is here. That's cute. Do you know what you would do as a kid? Like, what was the thing that would, you were gravitated towards?
Like artistically.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked drawing cartoons. I really liked animation. So, like, my brother and I would do little claymation movies together.
That's cool.
And
Okay, so you've been animating for a while. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a couple of movies that we made, like little stop motion movies, and did a lot of video game fan art for a long time in like middle school and high school, and just kind of always drawing and doing different things. I did like video editing and stuff around that age too, so kind of just playing in all different kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, slay. And then it's so interesting to hear that like ever since you were a kid that you enjoyed animating, and so then when you went to Parsons, you went for graphic design, and then what was it?
Illustration.
Illustration.
Yeah. I always loved animation. I think like animated Disney movies were some of the first art that I really connected with. So I think that was a big part of it. And then, I always, throughout art school, I did animation. I did some of it professionally after I graduated too. And I think I just really liked the kind of time-based element of it. And I like music and movement. And so it all kind of, I tend to have long ideas for something that I'm working on. So like even when I'm working on a series of paintings now, like there's usually kind of a long narrative and story that goes with it. And so I kind of, I like that kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I was gonna say that makes sense because I know that the last one that I saw that I really for me was like, oh, this almost looks like a storyboard or like you're seeing sort of the progression of a story was um, the huge one with the donkeys
Yeah.
going around. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun. So that's for my show that opens next week, which is great. Very
Ooh,
exciting.
exciting.
And that painting was called um, American Progress, which is actually the name of another painting that was done kind of around the turn of the century that was about manifest destiny. So it showed like this woman representing kind of
The angels.
America, yeah,
Yeah.
like conquering the West,
Yeah.
essentially. So this one is kind of the reverse of that, going in the opposite direction. And it was kind of funny. I went to the Autry Museum last weekend
Hmm.
for the first time, and that's where that painting is.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't find it. So I had to ask one of the guards where it was. And it turns out the painting is like this big. It's
You're
like this tiny little
what?
painting, which is fun since the one that I made is
It's
huge.
huge.
So I kind
Yeah.
of liked that. Because I knew I thought it was going to be like this big, but it's
Yeah.
actually teensy. So
It's tiny.
so that was kind of fun to find that. But yeah, so like there's usually like animation and
Mm.
trying to like shift perspectives and things like that in the paintings too.
Yeah, lots of animation as well as lots of art history references that I every now and then I can like clock, but other times I'm like, I don't know actually what this is, and it's always interesting to hear where you're coming from. Did you take a lot of like art history classes, or is this something that you just enjoy?
Yeah, I took a lot of art history classes in school, and then I worked a lot with two teachers at Parsons. They had their own drawing school outside of Parsons too, where they would kind of like invite students to join, and we would do workshops during the summer and on the weekends. It's called Del Vero Academy, and one of the things that they would always really encourage is we would do a lot of life drawing, like from a model and stuff, and they would say bring books in of different artists throughout history, and we would talk about different artists throughout, like on the breaks in between the when the model is resting.
Wow.
So just kind of started getting a really broad
Hmm.
kind of history of different types of art and trying to, you know, roll them around in your brain and come out with something that's yours, but it has all these different influences. So,
For sure. Was there any art period that you gravitated towards?
I mean, it's a boring answer, but I love the Impressionists. I love,
Same.
I love Art
Like,
Deco. I like Art Deco design wise, but I also like that it's a very gay art movement. So a lot of the artists were queer.
are not all art movements gay?
All art movements are a little
All
gay, but
art
this one's like
movements are a
extra
little
gay.
gay.
Yeah, so I
I
like
mean, like the Renaissance.
the Renaissance was gay too. Yeah, I
It's
guess they're
gay.
all kind
They're
of gay.
all
So
gay. Like
yeah,
pop art, Warhol. Like
yeah, okay,
they're
yeah,
all
they're all gay.
they're all gay.
Yeah,
Like the fags are leading it. I'm
yes,
sorry.
leading the charge. Uh,
But this one you said is particularly
yeah,
fruity.
but yeah, so kind of that era as well. I just like the design and
Mhm.
um, the different influences that come into it there.
Okay. How do you feel like what what do you take away from those into your work?
Sometimes it'll be like kind of the way that I will create the figures will have influences from those different time periods, or I look at a lot of how different artists use color. Color is really important to my work, I
Yeah.
think, and so I really enjoy playing around with it. But I also I try to pick up color almost a little bit more by osmosis than kind of color
Mm.
theory. So because I'm sure everyone in art school took color theory classes, but I kind of like to have it be spontaneous and trying to like, um,
Wait, there was an actual color theory class.
yeah. I don't know if I took a whole class on color theory, but it's always like a little bit of like complementary colors,
Okay,
analogous
okay,
color,
okay.
you know, that kind of a thing.
Got it, got it. I thought like a
Yeah.
study. I was like, oh, okay. So because I was gonna ask you also about your colors and sort of how you arrive at them because they're just always so beautiful and just very vibrant, but like they also mesh together so nicely. Like when you go with a painting, like how do you go about choosing colors? If or is it just intuitive?
Usually I'll kind of start by drawing from life. So I'll go out and nature and draw, or I'll draw from a model or friend posing for me, and I'll have books around, kind of scattered around me if that's what I'm doing in my studio. So I always have like, a whole bunch of books of different artists on the floor, and so I kind of just work intuitively in that way. And then when I'm planning a larger painting, I'll have those drawings around, and I kind of use those as the basis for the color palettes for the paintings. So, sometimes I'll have an idea color-wise going into it, but I feel like drawing from life, you get more interesting color combinations, and you get, you're a little bit more spontaneous with the colors. So I usually have some kind of an idea going into it, but then I like it to be a little bit spontaneous too.
Okay. How would you say that's evolved? I'm curious if you've noticed any changes in colors since you've moved from like your time in Colorado and your time in New York and out here in Riverside.
Yeah, definitely. I think that since I'm kind of pulling from the environment when I'm coming up with the color palettes, I think that I've noticed that the work that I was doing in New York was maybe a little bit not darker, but like the colors were a little bluer, kind of
Like
richer
cooler
in that,
tones?
yeah, richer in that direction, and also I think there was the shadows are kind of different in the East Coast, and in because it's so dry out here, so the light feels different. So I think out here the colors are it feels very yellow, like there's a
Okay.
lot of just very bright sun, and I think that kind of comes across in a lot of the paintings I've been doing here too.
What do you mean by dry? I'm like, I still never, I experienced like humidity for the first time last time I went to DC and I was like, oh wow, like this is
Yes.
humidity.
Yeah, I mean, and everything's dry. So like, but on the East Coast, everything's like damp. So
Okay.
the trees are big and dark green and lush, and here everything's kind of like shriveled, and I mean, not always shriveled. In the spring, it's very
Right. Bounces.
green, but it's kind of like it's a different green. It's very like bright and kind of yellowy here too, I think.
Okay. Whereas over there, it's a little bit more of like a moodier,
Yeah.
rich.
Hmm.
Okay. What other sort of things I'm like, have you noticed from the different transitions? Like different textures, perhaps, or compositions, or
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
different kinds of because there's a lot of landscapes in my work too, and I
Yeah.
think the space here is very different. It's a lot more open
Hmm.
out in the West, which is kind of what I grew up with more.
Yeah.
So that felt very familiar coming here. But I was, just a child when I lived in Colorado, so I didn't ever have a chance to kind of explore that as
Okay.
much as I did in New York. So I think that was kind of a fun change here. Was kind of just the expanse
Hmm.
of the West and trying to capture that a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Slay. And I'm also curious about sort of your, because you do graphic design and sort of you do a lot of children's books,
Hmm.
and how did you sort of go into that sort of career, and two, how do you um, feel balancing between, if you feel like it, between the two worlds of fine art and children's illustration, because they're two vastly
Different
different.
things, yeah.
Yeah.
So children's books was earlier, so that's kind of what I graduated doing, and then I've been doing that ever since. So my first job out of school was a children's book, so it just kind of started right out of the gate. Um, and
What was your first book?
it's called Grandfather Gandhi,
Okay.
and it was written by Bethany Hegedus and Arun Gandhi, who is Gandhi's grandson,
Oh wow.
who's a very,
Whoa.
very sweet man. He died recently, but
R.I.P.
he was very sweet and a very kind man. So it was his stories of growing up with his grandfather, being the grandson of one of the most famous men in the
That's
world. Yeah.
crazy. You spoke okay, just casually. Yeah, Gandhi's grandson. We
Yeah.
like had brunch.
We
That's
did. Yeah, we
crazy.
had
That's
breakfast a couple times.
crazy.
Yeah. No, he was a really wonderful guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, just and some, about half the books I write as well. So that's kind of, whatever.
Oh, you write some as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So
okay.
sometimes I'll just
Cool.
illustrate someone else's manuscript, and then other ones are stories that I've written too. So those are fun because it's kind of just whatever I'm interested in. I get to do a
Okay.
lot of research on it and, you know, figure out how to tell that story. And then for if it's someone else's manuscript, then that's also fun because I get to think about something that I haven't already been thinking about and kind of learn something new and figure out how to tell that story in illustrations as well. So yeah, I think that was kind of a natural fit for me. Like I said, I like long narrative types of artwork, so I think kind of have an impulse naturally to put everything in one image, and I think doing like animation or doing a book or a series of paintings helps me to kind of not put as much pressure on every single image because I can tell it through
Oh, right. You can
10,
split it.
20, illustrations or paintings. So, yeah, so that's been a great way to make art. And then about 6 years ago was when I started painting. And that's been, a completely different industry and a completely different way to think about art. And, at this point, I really just enjoy doing both of them and kind
Okay.
of, I think they have different things to offer and, different audiences. And yeah.
Okay. What made you want to dive dive into the fine art as opposed to just sticking with children illustration?
I think there's kind of a few different things that all coincided at the same time. I did a children's book about Ben Shahn, who's one of my favorite painters. And pretty soon after that, I wrote and illustrated a picture book about David Hockney, who's another one of my favorite painters. And just reading all their biographies and telling their stories, it kind of made me feel a little bit like instead of only telling other people's stories, like it kind of would be nice to have something that was for me also. So I think that was one of the things that kind of started pushing me into doing work that was more personal and less illustrative, I guess. And then around that same time, I also, there was kind of a big boom in the art world of queer figurative painting with artists like Louis Fertino and Duran Langberg. And I had never really seen anything like that before. And I think it kind of opened my eyes like, oh, wow, this, in children's books, you kind of have to, and any gay people working with children, you're,
Right.
cutting off a part of your life that just has no influence on, whatever work you're doing. So I think seeing artwork that wasn't compartmentalized like that was really inspiring to me. So it was around that time that I started kind of just dipping my toe in a little bit. And yeah.
Were you ever worried or scared of that transition?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, how did you manage that? What was your did you like write a pros and cons list? Like,
It wasn't quite that intentional,
Okay.
really. So I started an anonymous Instagram account
Okay.
where I was just kind of posting drawings that were like just naked drawings of men, essentially. So sometimes it would be like people that I met on Instagram, so I'd draw them over Zoom, or self-portraits or things. And I was just kind of doing it anonymously for a while and not really thinking anything of it. It was kind of just like, oh, this is fun. I'm enjoying it. And it feels like something that I'm doing for myself instead of for a job.
Did you tell anybody about it?
My husband knew,
Okay.
and then I think that was it for a long time,
Okay.
quite honestly. So I had no name, no
A
picture.
little mysterious.
Yes, yeah, my little
mystique, you say.
my secret identity. Yeah, so for a while it was I didn't tell anyone about it, and I was very paranoid about anyone finding out about it
Okay.
in my like real life because I was like, oh my
Okay.
god, I don't know. So I think I was doing that for like about a year, and then the work started getting like more complex, and I started bringing in kind of narrative into that and exploring different things. And so it started, taking on a life of its own a little bit and kind of gaining a bit of an audience on Instagram. So at some point I decided to kind of like take ownership of it and be like, okay, maybe I'll put my face with it, but with a different name. So I started using the name J. Carino, which comes from my mom's last name, which is Jaccarino. It's Italian. So her,
Cool last name.
I know, I was always a little bit jealous of it. Don't tell my dad, but I always loved her last name. It was just like a little, it sounded a little bit more artsy to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. And all of her family, both of her parents were artists. So it felt like it was kind of like in that lineage. So then I was just working, kind of doing both at the same time, and still pretty paranoid that, the lines might cross, just because
They haven't crossed yet.
they haven't, they have now, like openly. So
Okay.
it wasn't until like 2023, I did an interview with Queerty, which is like an online gay news outlet. And that talked about, because I had my David Hockney book coming out at the same time as I was having a show. So I was like, okay, this is kind of a good time to allow those identities to bridge a little bit. And I think I was prepared for there to be some kind of like
Backlash.
right-wing backlash or something if they found it, but no one cared. So that's fine.
As they should. Mind your fucking business.
Right, exactly.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Because I would imagine that it'd be, a little bit scary. Like, what if they do this? Like, especially with gay and
Yeah.
kids. Like, it's ripe for it. When you were doing it on social media and doing this other, like you were saying, the sketches of the men that you found online on Instagram and the self portraits, did you, when you were doing that, did you ever have sort of the intention of like, I'm going to be a fine artist, or was it more just like, no, I'm just doing this because it's just for the thrill of it, or like this is what you just want to do?
I think at that point, it was kind of more just like an exploration, and it felt kind of freeing to do something that didn't have to have an end result. So I was doing it, pretty much every day and kind of posting every day. And so it was something that was keeping me artistically interested. And so I was looking at lots of different artists and, just trying and experimenting. And I think it felt nice that, one, that since no one in my real life knew about it, no one was expecting it to be anything similar to anything that I had done before. So I could kind of just do whatever I wanted. And I think I really liked that at the beginning. And then people started buying them.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, that's neat. And then a gallery in the UK asked if I would want to like show a couple of them in their shop. They have like a antique and art shop in Rye. And so I said, yeah, sure. And so that was kind of my first step. I was like, wow, people actually want to buy these. Like, that's nice. Yeah. So that was when I started thinking, kind of taking it a little bit more seriously and like, oh, like, wow, maybe this is something that doesn't just have to be a side hobby. It could be something that,
Right.
I really put all of myself into. But
Okay. And then where do you see it now, sort of, like in, like if you were to sort of like weigh them out, like which would you say is leaning like more?
It's kind of been going in waves a little bit.
Okay.
I think there are times when, I'd rather be painting than working on a book, or, but I think that they both kind of offer different things. The fine art world is very fickle in terms of, like the art market hitting a slump or people's tastes change or whatever it is. So it can be kind of a more stressful way to make artwork because you're thinking like, oh, this one has to sell or that, and so I think that kind of, when I'm feeling that way in the art world, it's kind of nice to have the children's book side of it where, we have a contract, a deadline. I know when the money is coming in, but also it's a much more, like when you're putting out a book and I get to go to schools and talk to kids, it's just heartwarming and great. It's a very different experience than the art world, which is very money focused a lot of the time. But with this, it's like, oh, I get to,
talk to kids,
make pictures, get them excited, get kids excited about art. And so I think it's kind of nice to have both, where one is kind of for me and I can, challenge myself with, bigger paintings and more complex things and more complex ideas, but then also have the children's book side of it where I get to, tell stories and have a connection with a very appreciative audience. So, yeah.
It's cute. Aw. Have you ever had any sort of like kids or anybody would sort of do, I don't know, like fan art of not fan, of the books.
Yeah, it's really cute. Sometimes I'll get letters where they've like um, drawn my characters, or they'll write me notes saying how much they liked the book, or like do little like I went to a school in Redlands recently, and they had a little sign in my parking space where one of the, I think they were a third grader, had drawn little versions of all the covers of my books. It was very
Oh,
sweet. So yeah, it's cute. It makes you feel like a little celebrity to children.
that's so
Yeah.
cute. Have you had anybody get a tattoo of any of the characters?
I don't think anyone's old enough to be getting
Okay, okay.
tattoos of them. Yeah.
They haven't had that age
Not
yet.
yet, no.
Okay. As they grow up, because I'm just like thinking of like all of the children's books that I sort of grew up with, and like thinking like the people that I know that like like Clifford.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have any like name brand characters, so I don't know if anyone will get a tattoo, but maybe they will. I don't know.
If you were to have one pop off, which character would you want?
uh,
Like, which one do you think is like, no, this is like a, like this is a hit that y'all are sleeping on?
as far as like a character, I don't have like super character driven stories, but
Okay.
there was one, like I could see, I did this book that was about whales, and it was like a mom whale and a baby whale. I could see that being like a nice tattoo that
Okay.
could come out of that. Yeah.
Like a mother daughter tattoo.
Yeah.
That'd be cute.
Yeah.
I can see that. Have you done any stories of the snail? I love snails.
A snail. No, I haven't. But one of my teachers that I was mentioning before, who's in that drawing school, her name is Margaret Hirsch. She did a book on snail sex because
Okay.
with beautiful illustrations. But snails have a really weird way of having sex where they like
Yeah.
fire darts, and yeah. So someone else has done
Okay. Okay.
that. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look into hers. I just love snails, and when you're talking about characters, I was like, wait, have you done a snail?
Snails are adorable. Yeah.
They are. I used to have a pet snail. R.I.P. Bernard.
My friend had her and her boyfriend. We introduced them, my husband and I introduced them to Drag Race, to RuPaul's Drag Race, and she got super into it. So they had a snail. I can't remember the exact name now. There was RuPaul and Michelle Visage were the names of the snails, but then they were like mating
Bruce
too
snail.
much.
Oh yes.
So they had to start like
Killing
killing all of these snails, and it was very sad. I think it was Michelle Visage because like a shell,
Right.
and then
Bruce snail.
I don't really remember how they turned RuPaul into a snail, but
Bruce
Snail Paul, Roo Snail, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah,
Damn.
they're no longer with us though.
Diva down. Diva down. Um, I want to talk about you and your hubby and how is that? How did y'all meet? Because I know that also you're both artists, so I want to know about how that dynamic is.
Yeah, we met at Parsons, and it'll be 16 years ago this year, and then our 10-year wedding anniversary is next week. So that's
Oh
very
my
exciting.
God,
Yeah, that's a big one. Thank you.
congrats.
So yeah, I think it was my.
Gemini, right? Next week, or is it Cancer?
Well, he's a Cancer,
He's a Cancer. Okay.
but it's our anniversary.
Our anniversary is a Cancer's.
Oh, do anniversaries have horoscopes?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, your relationship.
It's probably
is,
a Gemini, the 20th.
I don't know I think that is a Gemini.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, continue. Sorry.
But yeah, we met in art
Parsons.
school
Aw.
because we were both doing graphic design at the time, and he worked as a graphic designer for a while, but now he is a ceramic artist.
Were you guys in the same no, do they have dorms?
They did have dorms. No, we weren't in the same dorm. We had a class together that I'm now blanking on. It wasn't a very good class, so maybe I shouldn't say what it was because I don't
Okay.
remember. But yeah, one time for my birthday, I missed the class because I just didn't want to go because it was my birthday.
Really?
But he was very sweet, and he sent me a message on Facebook because we're old, and told me what we did in class, and said he hoped that I was feeling better and blah blah blah. So that was kind of like our first.
Oh, like
interaction, yeah.
interaction. That's so cute. Ah, both artsy. And you were together when you were in art school, right? Or
Yes.
after? Okay.
Yeah. So we started dating in art school, and then yeah. I mean, I think we're both I think when people hear like, oh, two art, we always get that reaction of like, oh my God, two artists, that must be crazy. And I
Right.
feel like neither of us is kind of the
No,
stereotypical,
you're
like,
both pretty chill.
yeah, we're not like, "Wah," like not super dramatic. And so I think, yeah, it works.
Okay.
And we can both kind of, we're not in the same industry, so we can offer insights and feedback, but it's, it's never competitive or anything like
Right.
that, which is nice.
'Cause that's what I was gonna say is that I think it's also interesting that you guys are both artists but in different fields.
Mhm.
Um, and that must also be really sweet to like as you're growing, you're also seeing him grow and you're like evolving alongside one another.
Yeah, I think it's really nice because you can also probably appreciate the growth in a different way than a non-artist might be able
Mm,
to. Like he can see stuff in the way my work has grown, and I can see stuff in the way that his work has grown that maybe someone who isn't an artist wouldn't really get. But it's
right.
nice to have someone that gets that, be along with you on the journey.
Do you guys ever like critique each other's works?
I wouldn't say critique, but we'll like if we're stuck, we'll ask the other one
Okay.
for input.
Insights. Okay.
I'm not always great at taking the advice when I ask
Okay.
for it. But I'll ask for it and then be like, that's not the advice I wanted. But then later I'll be like, yeah, that was probably the right advice. So yeah,
Okay.
he does the same thing too. So
I mean, it's just like I think like the artist way, like sometimes you're like, oh, like when you're set on one idea and you're like, no, I want to do this. And after you sit for a while, you're like, you know what?
yeah,
You were right. You're right.
damn it.
All right, you win. Have y'all done any like collaborative things together?
We really haven't. We both started taking ceramics at the same time. Um, and so we were both kind of like doing pottery together for a long time, but then I stopped and he kept doing it and now it's his job. But yeah, we've never really collaborated on anything.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe we will. I think part of it is that we both like the same part of the art process. Like,
Mm,
so if we were going to do something that was like collaborating on something ceramic, like we would both want to do the kind of drawing part of it,
oh, okay.
so it would be
Yeah.
a little hard to collaborate like that, but
Okay.
someday.
Interesting. I would have imagined that he preferred the molding of it, but I guess it makes sense because he also does a lot of the tile work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he does a lot of tile work, and then most of the vases that he does are uh, like cast. So the shape is always the same, but then he
Got
does
it. Right.
different designs on them. So yeah, we both like kind of
The
the
same.
decorating part. Yeah.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. Right. Right. Okay. Um, that's so cute though that y'all are both artists in that. And how because you're both sort of artists, I guess another question I sort of have is like, do you guys ever just sort of go through periods where like you just like don't talk to each other because you're both just like locked in, or do you always try to like make room because like or for travel for different works and things?
Yeah. I mean, I think I try to kind of keep like we both keep normal-ish business hours as far as when we're working. So it's kind of like
Okay.
9 to 5. So then we, see each other every night. I've done a couple residencies, which was different because I was gone for long periods of time. Um, but yeah, so that was tougher. Like I was in London for 7 weeks last year on a residency. So that was, tougher because we didn't have that daily kind of
Right.
connection, especially with the time difference. But yeah,
Hmm. Okay. And with your sort of work, how do you think like if I forgot what I was gonna ask. Sorry. I guess I want to ask about the residencies and sort of like how does it affect you like when you like travel to different places? Is it the location that inspires you, or is it just sort of the fact that you're away from home in general, or like you know?
for me, it's really I think the location becomes a big part of it. So one of them was in San Clemente, San Clemente, which isn't very far from here, but it's on the ocean. So,
Right.
that was a whole new series of motifs and color and symbols and things to work into my painting. So that was really exciting and kind of took me in some different directions that I didn't expect. And then with London, it was a similar thing where, um, just completely different plant life, different types of landscapes, and the color palette shifted again. Kind of felt a little more like the East Coast, where everything's kind of moodier and lusher, and different flowers, different animals. So I think because I always like to kind of absorb wherever I am, I think the travel aspect of it really does kind of broaden the type of work that I make.
Okay. And do you find yourself using any sort of motifs even though you are changing throughout? Like what would you say is your sort of signatures?
Yeah, I think for my painting work, I always kind of start from uh, queer figures and nature, and so I
Okay.
kind of limit myself in some ways just because I think it's nice to have a framework
Okay.
for the kind of stories that I want to tell and type of work that I want to make. So that will always be kind of a starting point. But then I've noticed, moving to a few different locations and doing, work for different shows, there will be little pieces that I'll pick up and kind of take with me into the next series. So, um, like moving here, the wildflowers have become something that I
Hmm.
like to include, specific types of wildflowers, or there's a lot of donkeys in
Yeah.
the current series that I did, because Riverside has its famous donkey herd,
Hmm.
which you know,
So cute.
moving here, I loved it. And, it feels like you're in kind of like the African savannah and you get to see these wild animals out there. And I just love that. And so those have become a symbol in my work. Um, but also, I took some flowers and colors and symbols from London too into that same series. So it's kind of nice to be able to kind of collect these things
Hmm.
and use them again. Birch trees and aspen trees have become a big symbol that goes through my work. Growing up in Colorado, we have a lot of aspen trees, and I
Okay.
was always really in love with them because they have these eye shapes where the branches fall off. So it was kind of just an interesting symbol having kind of the forest watching you.
Hmm.
So sometimes I'll have like cruising scenes in my paintings, and I kind of like the idea that the forest is watching too. And so I have those kind of trees, but then when I went to London, they have birch trees instead of aspen trees, but they have those same kind of eyes. So similar symbol, but it changed based on
Hmm.
location. So there'll be kind of things that will, uh, I'll probably take those into the whatever paintings I do next too. So
Yeah, that's so interesting that like everywhere you go, you just like absorb and I don't know, reflect it.
yeah, and I think everyone kind of has things that they connect with and form their own kind of personal symbolism with. And so I like that, over the decades, I'll have my own, the donkeys will mean something to me, the sunflowers, the birch trees, the apple tree,
Right.
they'll mean something to me. And so, the longer I keep making work,
Hmm.
they'll take on different meanings. And I like that
Yeah.
kind of like bringing it with you.
And you'll develop your different relationships with it.
Mm.
I also thought it was interesting that you said that you like to put like a like a framework for you to work when you were like, what do you say, men in nature or naked men in
Yeah,
nature?
like queer men in
Queer
nature.
men in
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah, I think that, especially coming from an illustration background, um, you can kind of paint anything
Right.
and you could draw anything. And I think in some ways that's, uh, I don't know, I like the idea that there's a central, pretty loose framework because that's pretty broad. A landscape could be the ocean, it could be a cityscape eventually if I feel like it. It could,
Mhm.
so I think it can be broad enough. And then the queer figures, I think, just allows me to put myself into it
Mm.
as a form of storytelling. So they can be personal narrative or it could be societal narrative, whatever it is. So I think I just like having that little bit of framework where I can say, have a jumping off point of how I want to start.
Yeah. Would you, uh, when you do? sort of use yourself as a reference and stuff like that, do you consider them self-portraits, or do you like, is there a distinction when it is an intentional self-portrait?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not really that interested in them being portraits necessarily. So even, some of the figures that I did based off of my friends or my husband or something like that might also represent me, or it might represent
Okay.
a concept or whatever it is. So I think that I'm not necessarily interested in them like looking like me for
Mhm.
a specific storytelling reason. But yeah.
Okay, so they're more just sort of like just like a general sort of loose idea of like a queer man.
Yeah, kind of like a stand-in for
Mhm.
me or for other people. Yeah.
Okay. Is there is this that way it's more open, or is it?
Yeah, I think partially it's more open. Partially, I just get sick of looking at my own face all the
Okay.
time. So
Real.
I think
Okay.
that that's part of it, where it's I don't want a dozen paintings of my own face.
Okay.
But I think it's I'm also happy when a face changes when you're working on it. So I kind of
Mm.
leave room for that a little bit, where even if I started off doing it as like a portrait of my friend, I like to leave room for it to, if it makes it a better painting, change the face so that it
Right.
doesn't look as much like them. Yeah.
What do you think makes a better painting?
I think, if sometimes there'll be like an expression that will come across while I'm painting, or I'm like, oh,
Okay.
that's, it has the right feeling for what I want this painting to do. And um, so a lot of times if that happens, I'll just kind of leave it, even if it doesn't look like the person. I'd rather
Right.
have it have the feeling that I want to have. Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like it's like that in general when you're painting?
Like what?
Like leaving it be like even though it's not necessarily what you intended, or it might not do this, but you like it captures it well.
Yeah, I like to. I think also partially because I'm so used to illustration, where because there's a client, you have to, do a sketch, do a color sketch, they have to know exactly what it
Yeah.
is they're going to get. And so with painting, I like to leave it a little bit looser, so that if my intention changes during the course of the painting, I can change it. Or if something, sometimes the first way you do something is the best. So I'll kind of leave that part thinner,
Hmm.
and build up everything around it. Or so I think it gives some flexibility, and it makes the paintings feel a little bit more spontaneous, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a like I said, two complete different worlds of like the client. They want to know every little
Yeah.
detail.
Well, and it's
And
better for the artist too, because if you leave things up to chance, then they'll be like, "Well, what the hell is this blue part?" At the
right.
end, if it wasn't there in the sketch, and so it's, yeah, everyone's happier.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's I mean it makes sense for the client business, all of that. It's just like I said, just a much different way of going about it. And I'm curious sort of like what your mindset is when you're creating work for like a client like that versus for a show versus just for yourself.
Well, with if it's for a children's book client or publisher or whatever, there's usually a very specific story that has to get told,
Hmm.
and so that's I like to play around. I like to play with abstraction and different artistic influences in the books and things too. But the most important thing is the story being told through the images. So
Got it.
that's kind of like number one. And then I think with painting, it can be a little bit different, and I don't always know what the entire story is until I'm done with
Okay.
all of the paintings. So, um, like this series I just did for this upcoming show, it kind of started with a few paintings where there was one of
The faggot.
yeah. So there's yeah. So that's another symbol that I started in London, was the faggot gatherers. So I
Yeah.
liked the idea of this queer person out there gathering wood, or a faggot of wood, as it would be called. And
So good. I'm sorry.
no, I loved it too. So yeah, I had the first painting was these figures gathering faggots of wood to rescue them from the fire. So that was kind of one of the first ones that I did. there's a lot of fires going on in Riverside and in Southern California at the time. And then the other one was a painting of a man rescuing a baby donkey from a flood. So those were kind of the two beginning points for the series, but I didn't know exactly what the story was going to be. And so I kind of would just make a couple paintings, and since it happens over a long period of time, my ideas about what it means can change, and so I kind of like that flexibility with painting too, as opposed to illustration.
Yeah, I like that with painting. I also find that the more I sit with it, the more my relationship with it changes. The more I'm like, go back to it, and I'm like, actually, I'm not feeling this way anymore.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'll have a painting that I did maybe at the start of a new body of work, and then after I've finished all the other paintings for it, I'll realize that I feel like that painting is saying something different than I thought it was when I did it. And so that's kind of nice too. So it leaves it, a little bit more up to interpretation. And
Yeah, when you are sort of doing these like paintings that have like a specific story and narrative, and like how do you sort of feel when sort of folks perhaps don't understand it, or they're like, oh, it's about this, and you're just like, oh.
I mean, I kind of, I'm okay with that. I think that I like, when I'm going to someone else's show or to a museum exhibition or whatever, I like to have my own reaction to things, and then I like to read what the artist's intent was. And I think that there's kind of value in both. So,
Right.
If someone is looking at a painting and they saw something completely different than what was my intent, I like that too. So I think it's kind of nice to have both of those sides of it where, maybe they have their one interpretation and then they read what my intent was, and then it might change it a little bit, or, so I like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, I remember the question that I blinked out on earlier. It was about the children's illustration and sort of because it's for like client work. Do you find that you sort of have to perhaps let go of your ego, or sort of like like almost like release, like this is for? Do you get what I'm trying to say, or do you try to
I,
remain like attached to it? Like how close are you with it? Yeah.
I try to make it personal because I have a really hard time making artwork if it feels like I'm just uh, phoning it in a little
Okay.
bit, or like if it feels like it's only for work, I have a really hard time
Okay.
caring. So I always like to have a personal connection with whatever story it is that I'm trying to tell. So even if it's someone else's manuscript, I always like to do research or look at um, different art and try and find my own way into the story. And I think that makes it feel like my own story
Okay.
too. And it always feels very personal when I'm working on a book, which I think makes it more exciting for me, and hopefully
Yeah.
the audience too. They pick up on, I think kids especially pick up on when someone is excited about what they're doing. And so, yeah, hopefully that comes across too.
No, I think for sure, because yeah, I was gonna say like if how do you balance that? But that's good to know though that like you find ways to make it your own. To
Yeah, like there was a book that I illustrated a couple years ago called Color the Sky. And I had never really done it's a very simple book. It's just kind of teaching different colors. So it's kind of for a younger audience than my books usually are. And, different colors and different birds was kind of the general idea of it. But as I was reading it, I started getting, because all the colors kind of come together at the end. And I started thinking of it as kind of was imagining like a queer kid reading it and seeing themselves reflected in nature
the gay
again.
propaganda.
Yeah, I know the gay propaganda, but yeah, so it felt very much like,
Okay.
seeing it was a personal connection. And so I think that having that made the ending of the book completely different, because then to me, it was about this queer kid being okay with who he was and, flying. And I think that made it more special to me than just a book that was about colors and birds,
Right.
which I also like, but yeah.
No, I think that's so sweet. Okay. Yeah, finding your own sort of ways of inserting a story, and I don't know, because I think that it comes across
Mm.
for sure. Have you had a story that was given to you that you were at first perhaps not thrilled by, and then by the end you were like, oh, actually, I really love.
I really won't take a project if it's something that I
Okay.
can't really like find my own way into. So like usually if I get a manuscript from my agent and I'm just like, I don't know how to I don't. I like. I
This is
can't picture it.
the
Then,
chop.
yeah. So even I think if I think it's a nice story, I'm like, I don't know if this is like the right thing for me to do. So all the books that I've done, I felt that connection when I read it.
Okay. Have you considered making like a book with your all your other paintings?
I haven't, but it'd be fun.
I think that'd be like a coffee table book,
Yeah, that'd
or
be great.
like um I don't know, because especially since you work in series, I think like you could even just do like a little mini narratives with them, or just groupings of them.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Maybe once I'm a little bit older. I mean, I'm ancient, but I think yeah, as a
I think you have a lot of work to do it though.
yeah,
No?
no, but it'd be cool. Yeah, to kind of see the how the story changes through the paintings. I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, just a collection. Maybe just because I want a book of it. I love
I'll
books,
make
and I'm
you a
like,
book.
please, I would love a book of of all of your like larger sort of fleshed out paintings.
Mm.
Uh, do you ever find that it's not constricting, but sort of like, because you have set this sort of block of sort of what you're working on, that if you do something else outside that, like perhaps I don't know, like galleries might not like it, or I don't know, just be judged or something, or
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have thought about that because not everything that I want to talk about with painting is necessarily related to queer people or
right.
you know. But I think that I tried to keep it broad enough, and then I feel like I'm always, at least in my own head, trying to push the boundaries of what that kind of constraint is
Mhm.
that I've given myself. So I think, especially in this new show, it's talking about climate change and
Right.
migration and disaster. And, so I think within a pretty narrow framework of just like naked guys and plants, like
Right.
there's actually a pretty broad range of things
Yeah.
that you can talk about. And so I definitely want, as I keep going to, push that. And maybe there will, come a show that doesn't have any people in it and it's
Hmm.
only landscapes or abstract or whatever it is. I'm open to that. But I think, um, yeah, sometimes it's nice to have it's nice for me painting wise. And I think it's also nice for the audience to have like a touch point and be like, oh, I kind of know at least a little bit how to start interpreting what I'm
Mm.
looking at. And you kind of take people along with you.
Do you feel like the people in there sort of like entryways for folks to insert themselves into the work?
Yeah. I mean, I love looking at abstract art, but I think whenever I sit down at the canvas, I have a very hard time imagining that I would ever be able to say that's done. If there's,
Mm.
like even the abstraction that I tend to like usually also has roots in something concrete. So it might be a very abstracted landscape to the point where you can't see it anymore. But like for me, I always want there to be like a little bit of something to latch onto.
Okay.
Um, so, and that's just kind of the kind of art that I tend to look like. If I'm walking through the museum, I will probably be drawn to something that's more figurative, even if
Mm.
it's very abstract, than something that's just
Like purely abstract.
pattern or
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. It's interesting that hearing like the entry points that you like
Mm.
to include. Um, and then I was going to say that like because you were talking about, oh, how you were how, even though it's a tight framework, that you still enjoy sort of carving other little paths, are yeah, just carving different paths within that. I thought that was very cool, and was going to ask like, is there something that you look forward to producing, and that are I don't know, that you want to like push?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of topics that I'd like to explore more, and I think that it's kind of fun for me when I finish a body of work to then figure out what are the things that I feel like are still unsaid that I want to keep pushing on. And I think that with this bit of work, I talked a little bit about the flood, and so that's kind of a central motif throughout this series. But I've always been really interested in rivers,
Mm.
so I've been watching a lot of documentaries, reading a lot of books about rivers, and rivers are a big deal in the American West, especially, but also all over the world. And so I think that that's something that I'm going to keep. That's definitely a thread that I'm going to keep pushing on with whatever I do next, just because I think it feels like something very personal to me, but also something that I think, connects with where I grew up and
Yeah,
what's
the
going on in the
Colorado
world.
River.
And yeah, yeah,
Yep, the Colorado River, and how I'm like, that's gonna dry up
I
soon.
know.
I'm not ready for that. um, damn. Okay. Where do you hope to see your art and your career and yourself in the next 10 years?
Well, I mean, I'd love to keep doing both sides of what I'm doing. So I'd love to keep making books and keep painting and kind of see where that takes me. I'd love to start incorporating sculpture and animation into my fine artwork too,
Ooh.
just because I've done some of that before, but it's been a little while. And so I think I'm feeling more comfortable with painting now, or maybe I can start introducing those other elements. And I really love teaching, so I'd love to find a good spot that I can teach for a while. That'd be really nice.
Professor. Oh yeah, that's right. You were a professor for a semester, right?
Yeah, I've taught a couple semesters at different
Yeah,
schools,
yeah.
so I always really enjoy it, and I just haven't quite found like the spot to
Okay, to
keep
like
doing it. Yeah,
anchor down.
yeah, because I really love, especially like a college level. I think it's really fun and really rewarding to just get to pass. Like those two teachers that I mentioned, Margaret Hurst and Veronica Lawler, like they changed my life and taught me how to be an artist. I think, and I think that that's such an amazing thing to do for students. And so I want to be able to try and do that for
For the,
whoever I can too. Yeah,
yeah.
for the children,
For the
walking children in
children.
nature.
Oh, I think you'd be a really good professor. Because I'm like, you're just very inspiring and very knowledgeable.
I
Like
try.
the amount of like research that you put into a lot of these things is like also just like insane. Um, how do you know when to stop researching? Like, or do you always like throughout the process, like you're still
I'm
researching?
usually like kind of still researching, but like
Or I
after,
guess not stop, it's sort of started. But like when do you know when it's like, okay, I've done enough, let me
yeah,
start, you know?
I think I usually just get a little antsy and feel like I need to start
Okay.
making artwork. So there will just be a point where I'm like, okay, I've done like, I've been reading, I've been, sketching and making thumbnails. It's like I have to actually like do something now. And then
Mm.
that usually gets the ball rolling and feels like a good starting point.
Okay. Have you ever found yourself just like stuck in there because you're afraid to start painting, or no?
That's never really been my personality.
Okay.
I have always just very much been like, you might as well start. Like,
Okay.
which I think has served me well, where, I never, I've never had that like fear of a blank canvas kind of a thing.
Hmm.
I think, the reverse side of that is that, maybe I start too impulsively sometimes, but like,
Mm.
I think, it's always much easier for me to adapt to whatever I put down on the page or on the canvas. So like, rather than sit and worry about what I'm going to put down, I'm like, I'll just put something, and then you can say like, oh, well, that's wrong, and then you do something else to make it right. And so I think that's kind of my way of working. So yeah, I don't have like the fear of the blank canvas very much.
Okay. And you're more of like, you just put it on, and you're like, we work with it, we work with what we got.
Yeah, you work with it, and then if it sucks, you'll turn it around and work on something else, and then come back to it in a few months, or yeah, because it's always easier to make something from something than something from nothing. So
What do you say has been like the longest you spent on a painting, or that a painting has sort of been in the works? Like,
there's a painting for my show currently that I started 2 years ago. It was supposed to be for a different show, and then I wasn't really liking what it started off as a landscape um, based on Colorado, like near where I grew up. And so I kind of started it, but it was feeling just like a landscape. Like it wasn't feeling I don't know, I didn't quite have the connection with it once I started it. So I turned around and didn't look at it for a long time. And then when I was starting work on this show, I had done a couple paintings and I was like, not quite sure what I wanted to start yet. And I didn't have any canvases stretched, like ready to go. So I like turned that one around and I was like, there's kind of something here. So I put it up and it used to be horizontal. And so I put it vertical because sometimes I'll just kind of like flip things around to see if it inspires something. And I really liked the shapes that it was making. It had a big tree in it that was, on the ground. But when I turned it on its side, it had some really interesting shapes. And so then it ended up being a painting of a figure carrying a tree instead of the original landscape. And that was really exciting. And so I kind of, I finished it in that way. And so I think overall that one probably took, 2 years to do, but I wasn't like working on it the whole time.
Right.
But it had to breathe for a little while.
When you do that, do you ever sort of as you're updating it, sort of being like it's the intentions are no longer the same? What are sort of your thoughts as you're like just changing it?
This one was very like instinctive. Like when I turned it on its side, I looked at it, I was like, oh, there's a shape underneath it that looks like I could fit a figure in there. Because I had, the faggot gatherers.
Yes.
And so this one was building on that where it was, he's carrying an entire tree. So it felt like, like a statue of Atlas or something like that. And it just fit with everything else that I was doing. So, yeah, that one was just like a very like instinctive, like, oh, I know how to solve this. And sometimes I just need to like turn it on its side or something like that.
Okay. If we were to manifest right now, you being shown somewhere, where would you want to be shown?
Oh my. I can never remember the names of anything. I mean, yeah, like Victoria Moreau in London is a wonderful gallery. I like a lot of the artists they show there. I'm trying to think of Simio's gallery in Paris has a lot of wonderful artists there. So, yeah, there's a lot of galleries where PPOW in New York, I also think is a great gallery. They show a lot of queer artists, which I really like. So there's a lot of great galleries that I would, yeah. So who knows?
Or museums?
Museums, definitely. That would be amazing.
I forget that there's a distinction between the two.
No, that's true. I hadn't even thought of that too. Yeah.
I use them interchangeably. That I'm like, oh wait, that's right, they're different. And so when you're talking, I was like, I'm sorry, I have no idea. No tea, no shade. I'm sure they're lovely galleries.
No, I would love to be, in museums. That would be wonderful.
Like, where would that?
Let's say the Met. Let's manifest the Met. Yeah.
The Met. Mm-hmm. I can see the Met.
Yeah.
Next to a Monet.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah. And it would be fun somewhere to show my American Progress next to the real one, like the little one.
Right.
That would be fun. So maybe someday that'll happen. That'd be great.
We should get in contact with whoever has that collection, and then just like
let's talk to the Autry. Yeah.
Yeah, talk to them. Be like, hi, I would like to donate a painting.
A very big painting.
A very big painting, and then just like slowly just let it marinate there.
There we go. Yes. So the Autry. I want to show that painting at the Autry.
At the
That'd be
Autry.
great.
That'd be very cool to have them both side by side. The straight man's dream and and the queer man's dream.
Yes.
Wow. Slay. Okay. Is there? I don't know, any upcoming... Well, I guess I don't know when this podcast is going to go up. Because I was going to say, is there anything coming up? But I was like, what if this comes out in like a month or so?
Well, the show at Yossi Milo in New York will be up until July 25th. So if it's before July 25th, go see that in New York.
Check it out.
And if it's not, then look at it online.
Look at the archives.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And he's saying... Right now that you said you're going to be doing the Rivers project, right?
Yeah, thinking about that now. So that's kind of letting it marinate for a little while, taking a little painting break before the show, and we'll see what happens after.
I'm curious how you want to incorporate sculptures in this.
I don't really know. This series was inspired by Frank Stella's sculptures of Moby Dick, which are kind of like flat graphic sculptures with different materials and patterns and shapes, and it would be interesting to do something like that, like a wall-mounted sculpture. He uses like sheet metal and things like that. Like something like that would be a lot of fun. Or just go down to my husband's ceramic studio and start playing around with clay would be fun too. So
Right, while he's out of town.
yeah, exactly.
Doo-doo-doo-doo. Would you ever do like an animation with just painting, like the Van Gogh one?
Yeah, I mean that was crazy. I wouldn't do it like that because that was too much.
Like I
I mean
know
it was
that's
beautiful,
like
but
it's gorgeous, an
yeah,
insane amount of work, but maybe not to that extreme.
I would
But
love to do like an animation that was based on my paintings. Like I think that would be really fun.
okay.
Yeah,
Do you have an iPad?
I do. No, I just lied. I don't have an iPad.
You said
Maybe
that
I have
so
an iPad.
boldly.
I think
like-
Chris has an iPad. Chris has an
Okay,
iPad,
'cause
but
I
it's
was
like an
gonna
old one.
Okay, because I was gonna say you can go on Procreate and then just like animate one of your drawings or so one of your paintings. I think would be really pretty.
Yeah, I used to do that for all of my books. I would use like After Effects to just animate the illustrations for like a book trailer and things like that. So I've done that before with like a flat painting and animating it, which was really fun. So maybe someday I should do that for a show. Like
Yeah,
have a little animation.
bring it back. You can even have it be. I've seen some. I just saw one recently of a mural where you scan the QR code and then it's like an AR
Oh, that's
of
cool.
of
So it like
the.
animates.
Mhm.
Ah, that's very
So
cool.
like I saw. Oh, I also saw that for. I saw a Takashi Murakami show in for the Broad, and you would scan it, and it was a sculpture, and then you would scan the QR code, and then it would open a filter in Instagram, and you would show the sculpture, and then on Instagram it would literally animate different things around the
Oh,
sculpture.
that's really cool. Yeah, that'd be something.
So I don't know. Maybe that could be something.
Hologram.
A hologram. I don't know. Maybe the flames coming out. Maybe you hear the donkeys. I don't
Oh yeah.
know.
I should play constant donkey noises in the gallery.
You should. I think that'd be so cute. Also, I don't know. I think that a lot of galleries and things are very quiet. So
That's true. Yeah, I like that. You know, we can have the ambient sounds of Riverside
the ambient sounds
in
being
New York. Yeah.
yeah, that'd be cute. I'd talk to them, and be like, "Hey, crazy, hear me out." I don't know, but I'm also maybe like, I just for me, I'm like, I love those like strange pushing, like,
I like that kind of like an immersive.
especially since it's that, or like maybe like the sounds of like the crackling or the water. I don't know, but the donkeys, I think, are just so cute.
Yeah, they do make great sounds too. So
They do, and especially when they're out in nature and like you hear like the trees and the birds and the cars.
hopefully no cars. Yeah.
But okay, slay. Well, I mean, I think that's all the questions. I don't know if there's anything else you would like to cover or say that I did not ask.
No, I think we covered all of it. So
Slay.
thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. Let the folks know where they can find you, see ya.
You can find me on Instagram at j.carino, CARINO.art, or Evan Turk Art. So I have 2 Instagrams. That's pretty much it.
Slay. And then website or no?
jcarinoart.com.
Period.
Yeah.
And then if y'all are in New York, go check out the show. And I'm sure by the time this goes up, maybe there'll be another one.
Yeah, maybe.
Allegedly. Yeah, and I mean, y'all know where to find me over Art Perry, my podcast, Art Thoughts Perry, my website, perrypicasso.com, and my portfolio, picasso.com. Yeah, until next time, adios.
Bye.
Ciao. Thank you so much. Thank
That was
you.
fun.
It was. And then let me take a picture.